Hey, everybody in Instagram. And we're doing a double live on Instagram and on Facebook. We're just waiting for Facebook to come on and take us live. I think we're live on Facebook. There we are. Um, we just wanted to come and have an honest conversation. I think there's a lot that's happening. Rudi and I, as many of you know, have been together now 5 years, and we really call our relationship very intercultural. A lot of other people say that we're interracial. I think if Rudi was raised in the US, I think we would have lots of different conversations. But he was raised outside of the US, and as of late, so I'll say since Corona, and which no one's talking about, and now with George Floyd and his murder, and now we have riots, we have all kinds of things happening in the US. Rudi and I have had honest conversations about, I always like to know his thoughts because I want to know exactly what his thoughts are because he's not from here. And sometimes my frustration is more of, um, he has a different ideal. And so in those conversations, we have disagreements because his ideas of what America was to him growing up and why he wanted to move here versus what we have now, um, is very different. So, Rudi has a very different understanding, and I'll let you explain how it is because I do think that it's, for me, being able to see someone else's point of view, who hasn't been raised here is always enlightening because sometimes I think we need to listen and understand what each other is saying, without all of the noise. And I think Rudi and I do a really good job, even though we have very intellectual conversations. We both give each other the respect and the space to be able to say what we need to say without judgment. Or if I don't agree, I'll wait till he's done and then I'll come and say I don't agree. But as of late, yesterday, we really had like a 2 hour conversation about really what's everything happening, and what his point of view is, because I don't ever think I really ask you. And when I ask you, I'm never ready for what I'm going to get. Um, but I think it's something that needs to be discussed in a simple way. And the simple way is just being open and honest and having those conversations that for some people is very difficult. I've reposted a lot of what people are saying. There's things that I agree with, and then there's things that I don't agree with. And I feel with the platform that I have, that to have open, honest conversations is some place that we really need to get to eventually. And so I told Rudi, I said, maybe we just need to kind of have our conversation the way we have our conversation and let people have a place where they're able to have honest feedback without any judgment. Because there's a lot of judgment happening on Facebook. There's a lot of people giving their opinions and telling other people how they should feel instead of just saying, okay, it's how you feel. Can you respect how I feel? And then kind of leaving it there. We want to dictate to other people how they should feel and what they should say and what they shouldn't say. And with my husband, we really have learned to allow each other's, the way we were raised and what we believe in, to be in our relationship and be able to have honest conversations. So, you know, um, share, baby, how we talked last night, and how you're mourning your loss of what you thought the American dream was.
Well, where to start? Let me start by describing describing where I come from. I don't mean literally. As somebody who's not born in the US, and this is, I think I speak for the vast majority of the rest of the world, not just Europe, but literally all over the world. The US has always been an ideal to the rest of the world. There's always been an ideal um, and a fantasy about what the United States stands for, what is achievable in the US, why so many people try so hard to come here. Um, and you can call it the American Dream. That's just a very nice title. American Dream for everybody is very different. But the US always stood for a certain personal freedom, a possibility to achieve, and that was one of the big reasons for me to choose to come here. And I have achieved a lot. I have achieved, I believe, in this country more than I could have anywhere else in the world. Um, I was able to forge my own path, that I would have not been able to do anywhere else. And you got to remember that I came to this country almost 28 years ago now, almost 29 years ago, with nothing, with literally nothing. I mean, I came with a small suitcase, a bag for clothes, and $500 in my pocket. That was it. And again, this is something that I think would have not been able to achieve anywhere else. The reality, I want to say, is not that as an outsider, especially when you start living here, you don't buy into the whole fantasy. You see what's going on. I'm very much a realist. I've lived in harsh conditions where I know what's going on. I can see what's going on. I'm informed. But you always had this optimism that it will go forward. There's always this optimism that in this country, as bad as it is with the inequality, the economic inequality, the racial inequality, but you always had the feeling that it was, it's going a little bit forward. It's going always a little bit forward. There's always a little bit of an advance. And I think I've stated this before, that in the last 4 years, I have wept for my country.
I think for us and how we are so open with each other, Rudi is very much a person who really just feels. Is one of the reasons why I fell in love with him so much, is that, as big as he is and as tough as he is, he's definitely my teddy bear. He's very, he has a very big heart. And we really, even in our conversations and disagreements that we have, it's very much, we always say German versus US, because our cultures are so different. And we've seen, and I've shared with him some of the situations that I've been in where the judgments based off of my skin tone have been pretty much the same, whether I'm in an area that has a lot of Black people or there's been a lot of white people. I mean, the judgments for me have always been the same. So it's for me, I was not raised in an inner city where there was a lot of Black people. I was the only Black girl. I was the only Black girl in a lot of situations. So for me, I was told at a very young age that I'm different. And it wasn't from my family, it was from other people. Other people were telling me that I was different. And, when I share those things with Rudi and I share the struggles I had growing up, he always says, I don't quite understand why someone would be interested in telling you how you're different. And I said, it really was more of the unknown, the fear. When I grew up, I didn't grow up in a poor area. I grew up in an area, in the part of town that was very affluent. The racism happened from our neighbors. The racism happened for me at school. It was consistent. So I knew by the time I was in kindergarten that I was different. And as I became older, it became more blatant as I excelled at sports, as I, my sisters came along and they were in school and I became the protector. It was battling the justification that I have brown skin. It wasn't that I wasn't smart. It wasn't that our family wasn't, had nothing to do with money. It literally had to do with the color of my skin. And, you know, the racism has always been a trigger for me. And it's a trigger for me because of the judgment on this basis of my skin color. And that's it. Not who I am, not what I do, not how I love. It's literally color. And, you know, when I started dating Rudi and we started really learning about each other, it was really kind of me very intrigued because he was not raised here. So the racism part wasn't inbred in him.
And I think that's the part where it makes it very, very different for me. Simply from, I don't want to say Germany doesn't have racism or prejudices. Good Lord.
They do.
Good Lord. But I think I can say that prejudice and racism has very little to do with skin color there, especially the way I grew up. Um, First of all, there weren't many black people at all. The only black people that we came in contact with were U.S. servicemen, and that was, something really cool
Different.
and different, but not bad different. So this is not really something that's inbred in me, and I don't want to give the ludicrous statement that I hear so often. I don't see color. Absolutely stupid. Of course you see color, but it means something different for me. I think that's the big thing. Not being born here, the color means something different for me. As far as, yeah, I don't even know how to say that. It makes no difference.
Right.
It makes no difference. I'm going to dislike you because of who you are, but the color it doesn't make it. It literally makes no difference because it was never something that I grew up with or that I had learned or that I was indoctrinated with. So, do I see color? Am I aware of what's going on in this country? Absolutely, absolutely. But to make it, I don't understand it in my core. I think that's one of those things. I just don't understand it in my core. Um, and to come back to the American dream, the last 4 years is something that a lot of people that came here from other countries and a lot of people, friends and family that I still have at home that they're looking what's been going on here in the last 4 years, and people are aghast. People scratch their heads. They can't understand. They cannot understand what's going on here. That's, I think, that astonishment. You have to explain, and there's nothing, and you can't explain it. It has become very, very clear, I think, in the last 4 years, and I think that's a very rude awakening for people who grown up here, how fragile the system is, really.
Yeah.
How fragile the system of American democracy is, how fragile the system is when it comes to healthcare. I think that's a big one that we just
We're still experiencing.
still experiencing.
Right.
But how fragile all of these things that we thought are set in stone in this country really are. This rah, 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 USA, USA, we're number one. Everybody's waking up to the fact, yeah, we're not number one
We're not.
at all in anything.
No.
If you look at and compare it with other countries, smaller countries, even less sophisticated countries, they're all surpassing us in so many fields. I mean, the only thing is that the US is number one is in pride. Everybody's proud, of being American, but what does that really mean? What do you really do to deserve that? And I think this whole thing of the curtain being really yanked, um, a way in exposing the bare guts of this country. And again, this the word is fragile. How fragile everything is. Um, that is sad. Sad. It's very, very sad. It's disillusionment, and it's just sad. And the biggest argument we actually have is when I try to explain how America was always the guiding light, the shiny city upon a hill for the rest of the world. And then Stephanie, of course, rightfully says, "Yeah, but it's never been that way.
It's never been that
It's
way.
never been that." And I try to explain to her it doesn't matter that it's never been that way. That is the picture. That is the vision of what the rest of the
But
world
the vision,
had,
love,
and that is
was a
what you
lie.
exactly. I know that, but
Okay.
it is that shiny vision. That is what everybody tried to strive for. That is what people
But no,
wanted to be. They
no,
wanted to
no.
achieve and be like that. Of course, it was a lie. I understand that.
But here's the thing,
But now
love.
it is so much more exposed as a lie.
But it's always been exposed. We have history books. You can't say that and I love you, but you can't say that you were looking at this dream. But there's always been moments in history. We have it documented. It's always been there.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think the difference is um, that, as I said before, there was always that optimism that it is going forward. The arch of history, as
The
Martin Luther King said,
movement,
goes forward.
but no, no, no.
That there was always that optimism. And now with the government, the way it is now, with the regime that it is now, it is so blatant. It is so frightening for a lot of people because a lot of people outside the US have experienced or lived next door to dictatorships and fascists. And especially in my history, German history, my neck hair goes up and started right 4 years ago when I started to hear these things and I started to see the things. It's like, oh my God, this should not happen.
But baby, it's always happened. Why is it, and we go into this, why is it that you can't understand that history has always been here? Why do you want to say moving forward when we have always been here? We've always had racism, we've always had sexism, we've always had judgments against the poor, we've always had this divide. It's always been there. So the American dream that you saw was what we project, and we've always projected, even though we have all of these things that have always been there. My experience, and I shared this with you, when I've left the US, I was put into the projection of what we projected. So when I've traveled to other countries, what we project to the world is how I'm treated. I'm not treated as an American first. I'm treated as a Black woman first, then an American. So what we've told the world who we are has been a lie. So now here we are. And as a Black culture, we have been dealing with this for over 400 years. It's always been there. The thing that I think people don't understand is that the George Floyd killing, murder, was watched. We watched a man suffer for minutes and no one helped him. It wasn't a blip. It didn't just happen where you saw him in the street and he was already dead. We watched him die. And telling someone that they can't feel that emotion or be empathetic to that, and then saying, well, you can only have this emotion this way. We don't have a right to do that. And the thing is, in Black America, our generations have always seen this. We've always seen this. I can never look at the pictures where you have Black men hanging in trees or being tortured to death. I don't ever see those visions because it's so hurtful to my soul, but they've always been there. My grandmothers and back have seen their husbands, brothers, fathers killed and murdered and be on a tree for days like a spectacle. It's always been there. So When you say the American dream, your American dream and my American dream are very different.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, I understand that, and I know the history, and I know the history
It's ugly.
well enough to think I have a very firm grasp of it. But it's always been that you had that hope for positive. You always had that hope for the move forward. And to this day, I'm open.
I know you are.
And and for me,
You still are. You still
and
are.
yes, but for me, the big thing is that I'm hoping that all of those bad elements that live in this society are just going to breed themselves out of existence. I mean, that's the only hope that I have going forward, that the next generation is going to be better than the one after that, because there's going to be more mixing. There's going to be more people not segregating themselves as groups, but more people coming together and understanding, the fundamental truth that people are the same. And that's the only hope that I have, that, I mean, if I didn't have that hope, how incredibly sad would that be? If I'm sitting here and going, it's just not going to get better. This is just the way it
But
is
that's
for
what
now.
I'm just saying. We've had generations of this. This has been our reality.
It has, but again, I'm before, the way, at least for me, it felt, and for I think a lot of outsider felt, it looks like it was going incrementally, not fast enough. I understand it, and there are steps, 3 steps back and 2 more forward. But in the last 4 years, the way this has been here, the way the system has shown itself to be so, again, fragile is the word. It is frightening to see that there might not be the step forward, that there's not enough people who are going to be able to propel this country towards what it's supposed to be.
Towards the lie.
Make the lie, turn the lie into a truth finally.
Turn the lie into a truth.
Woo,
woo.
that is the hope.
Wow.
And the sad
Turn
thing is,
the lie into a truth.
yes, and the sad thing is, I believe that, under our last president, some of us thought it was much closer than it is now.
Closer to the truth.
Closer to becoming a truth.
Got it.
That is, and I think that is the big disappointment. That is the overwhelming sadness, that it looks like it's going to be so much longer, and it's going to take even more generations.
It will.
To, fulfill the dream of one nation.
Where is it in the world that there's one nation? Where is it that in the world, in any country, where there isn't any racism, sexism?
There's not a place that has none.
But that's my
where
point.
It's better.
You were expecting America to be something that no country is. What country is that doesn't have that?
That it is at least striving for it.
What country right now, today, does not have any of the things that you have put on America? What country? What country doesn't have racism? What country doesn't have sexism? What country?
There's no such place that it doesn't have.
That's my point.
But the American story that this country has sold to the rest of the world, and has sold to itself, and has upheld for itself, is to strive for better.
You want America to be where there is no country in the world that is. You want America to be that dream that they said they have, but in reality, there's no country.
Ultimately,
there's no country
ultimately,
that has that.
And that's what I think that's the biggest disappointment, that you think it was going towards that, and it's even if it's at a crawl, but at least it's going towards that.
I don't know how you're thinking it's going to go there, but it's never been, love. It's never been.
but that's what you gotta hope for. One day.
I can only hope for.
One day.
I can't hope for something that has not been. We can't say, and I understand what you've grown up with the illusion of what you thought America was, and then America has never been that, and now it's even more evident that it may not be in your lifetime or mine.
Mm-hmm.
So that reality is a hard one to swallow, because your whole strife of getting here was because of that dream that was never gonna happen.
Yeah, but you were hoping at least that the next generation is gonna have it better, and the generation after that. But now, the way this looks, it looks so far.
It's always been this far. 400 years. It's always been this far. And and the thing is, love, you and I have always, and we have these conversations and we get worked up, and him and I go back and forth. And Maxine says, I haven't lost hope, Rudi, either. It's not for me, it's not hope. It's my reality. This is my reality.
And I understand that, and it is everybody's reality that sits here. But
no, it's not your reality, love. My reality is not your reality.
oh no, I know that. But what I'm saying is, it's the reality of the situation. I understand that, but
stay there.
yes,
You understand it. So why is it that you want change instead of sitting in it? I've sat in it for 45 years. We've been uncomfortable for how many days?
but because I don't want to accept it. I don't want to accept it. If I accept it,
That's honest
then
talk.
if I accept it, then I accept defeat.
But it's not accepting defeat, because that has been the Black American plight. We don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. I have to accept it.
I don't want to. I don't want to.
We don't want to either.
I don't want to accept that. I don't want to.
But that is how
Have
that is
that
how
defeat.
I have been raised. I had to be raised to make sure I wore the right things. I didn't talk too loud. I didn't look too long in someone's eye. You be respectful. You don't get too emotional. You don't cry at the drop of a hat. There's a lot to it. We raise the way we raise, even the way I raised Celine, even Angela's on here talking about her son as well. The way we raise our children is, we have to make sure that we are not looked at and people think we're intimidated. I've always been told, you're very intimidating. You make me nervous. I get scared talking to you. Imagine the psyche. Black Americans have endured a lot. And the thing is you just said it. You don't want to continue to be in it. You've been in it for these few days and feeling this way.
No, I've been in it for
few years. Let's add a couple hundred behind that.
no, and I absolutely, again, I intellectually understand it, but again, I don't want it.
You think I want to?
No,
Okay.
no, and that's why I'm saying I don't. That's why it's so disappointing and it is so saddening that it's just.
It's sad and disappointing. It's, for me, very triggering. Angela's on her and I had a conversation this morning. Maxine thought we had a conversation this morning. And Maxine, I love the fact that she always says, I'm listening. And she says, what do you think? And I'll be like, I don't know if it's time yet. Or, I'm very passionate when people bring up Malcolm X or Martin Luther King that have both been assassinated, right? It's a Band-Aid. Don't bring that up. Don't bring those leaders up. Don't bring it up. It's a Band-Aid. Don't say all lives matter. It's a Band-Aid. We're not saying all lives don't matter. We're saying Black lives do matter, because we don't matter.
I think what it is I'm disappointed in my adopted country.
You're not the only one disappointed, baby. You're not the only one disappointed. And I think that's honest conversation for you. So sweet. I think that's the honest conversation. Um, and it's hard for Rudi and I because we're really being bare now. We're being very open. I mean, this you peeked into our lives in multiple times, but to have the conversation now and to share our point of view in a non-threatening way, in a way that's not aggressive or angry. It's emotional for both of us, but I do think that, people who have respectfully said, I agree and thank you for, allowing me to say what I have to say, or what can I do to help? How can I learn? How can I be more empathetic? I think all of us need that. I can't tell anybody how to feel. I can't tell anybody, how to control their emotions because this is super emotional. Um, and I think the George Floyd's murder was the tip of the iceberg. People are tired. They're done. And something has to change. And when you have leadership the way we do, that provokes it and stirs it up,
Doubles down on
it's even more hurtful because you would think that someone in that position would understand that this is not helping anything or solving anything. But I think, for us, it's disheartening. It's sad, and I hear Rudi, even though a lot of the conversations in German when he talks to his family, they're concerned for him. It's hard. It's hard to say, and Rudi loves being here. We talked about him becoming a citizen, and my family is always like, he needs to be a citizen. And it's like, he's going to have to give up his German passport. And that's something I can never force him to do. He has to do that on his own. I can't say, you need to be American. Not the way we acting right now. I wouldn't want to be one either. But I can't tell him to do that. So I have to respect him and where he is. And, you know, um, having these conversations is what we have at home. I mean, we have a Black daughter, Rudi has experienced racism. I mean, I think the situations that you've been in, at least with us, he's even said, wow. And I'm like, well, this is normal. I mean, this is how I'm always treated. But now I think you're seeing a little different. You're getting a little bit different kind of glimpse because it is so blatant. And Rudi's been prejudiced against as well. I mean, there was a guy mad at him because we were together. And I didn't even want the man, but that's not the point. The point is that, the man was treating Rudi wrong and being mean to Rudi. And I told him, I said, why is that man being mean to us? Oh, it's because we're together. So there's a lot to unpack. And I think, we have a lot to strive for. And I think we need to have more conversations that may be uncomfortable. I've always been the one to be like, you know what, let's head it up straight on. Let's have that conversation. I've had it with Rudi, and I even told him when Trayvon Martin was murdered. I said, here's the thing. Be prejudiced. If you don't like Black people, don't like Black people. That's fine. I'm not upset about that, right? What I'm upset about is you feel that your hatred towards another race and you blatantly kill someone like there's no consequence. Like, you could have kept that hate to yourself. No one needed to know you didn't like Black people for whatever reason. And then you put yourself to go into jail, which is even more people of the people you don't hate. Like, I've never been one to judge someone because of their hatred towards me. And people don't quite understand that. The power in words to me is very, very specific. I've never been one to, when I was younger, I would get upset when someone called me out my name. But as I've gotten older, I really don't, because I haven't really given you that power. Like, if you think that word is going to, ignite something or get me upset, it's like, okay, so do you really have anything else, or is that all you're going to do? I've been able to really kind of for me, when it's launched at me, really dissect it and just say, okay, so what exactly are you saying? And Rudi can tell you, I can cut you real quick with some words. And I don't even really have to cuss you out. Like I can really get there. Um, but I've had to get to that point. It's been like a callus. I had to be called out of my name multiple times to get my mindset there. There's a lot of people who can't handle that. There's a lot of people who get fired up when they get called out of their name. Um, and it's sad because it's probably saying that I've been called out of my name so many times that I've had to figure out how I'm going to respond to it. Um, and for me, that's been part of my therapy, is dealing with the things that I can't control. And even in all of this and what we've witnessed here, there's a lot of things that we are unable to control. Um, and the emotions behind not being able to control that have always also been something that I've wrestled with. And Rudi has honestly been very quiet. I've asked him probably like the last 4 days. I've asked him every day, and he doesn't really respond. I just be like, what do you feel? Like, how do you feel with everything that's going on? And he's like, and then he doesn't say anything. And then the next day I'll come back and be like, so how are you feeling with all of this? And then he's still like, so it was yesterday when he came home from work, because we kind of have a ritual where um, uh, I really kind of tap out. So there's a certain time of day that I always tap out. I'm not going to work. I'm going to kind of just sit and look. I'll eat a little bit, sit, relax, get in my recliner. And he came in and sat down. And I finally said, well, since we have time now and it's after work, what do you really feel about all of this? And that's when 2 hours later, I was looking at him like,
Who are you?
what? Even Celine came in and peeked her head around and she was like, what's going on? We're talking. And that's the thing I think that we, a lot of us need is to be able to have a safe space to have a conversation, emotional conversation, very heartfelt. You know, my cousin's on. Changa, thank you for being on. We had a call last night where we were talking, you know, and kind of just, you know, almost very therapeutic, being able to express how you feel and your emotions. Because, you know, again, we are seeing over and over, you know, people being murdered. And I think that's the part that just the empathy in me, I don't even watch, you know, certain movies because I can't handle it. But to be and take the same medium that I use for entertainment and show me something so graphic and so barbaric and so inhumane, um, you know, and for it to be played over and over again, it just, I don't sit well with that. That it agitates me. And I even told Rudi, I'm like, I have to tap out of Facebook and Instagram because the more they're showing it, the more they're desensitizing us to this type of behavior. And, you know, I know that, but then I look at Celine and I ask her about it, and I'm, you know, I'm worried about her level of empathy just because we show so much brutality and it's becoming normal for these younger kids to watch. And that hurts my heart because we need empathy. We need to be sympathetic. We need to, you know, have that human connection. Um, and that's what worries me the most is that, you know, uh, I don't want her generation to be empathetic so that anything just happens. You know, yeah, it's deep. It's
I
deep.
think the conversation part is the important thing. I think, or I firmly believe that what this country needs is a fact-driven, realistic conversation about what the US is and where it comes from. That is the big, big thing that has never been done in this country to work through its history. Its history, its realistic history has not been taught.
No.
It doesn't really come up. There's so many people when you have any kind of arguments about anything where you very quickly find out that they don't know. A lot of it comes from ignorance, blissful ignorance. A lot of them, they like their ignorance. Um, they're like their Inquirer News headline facts. But that's a big thing, I think, in this country that has not been done. It's not been The history has not been worked through at all levels. And that's one of the things that I can say from Germany, simply because of its history, that there has been great strides made, there have been great efforts made to not forget, to make sure that the history is learned, to make sure that the history is ever present. If you ever go to Germany, you will see that our past is ever present. That it was so horrific that there are so many people who do not let you forget. There are so many organizations who do not let you forget. There are laws made that do not let you forget. If you walk around in Germany and you give the Sieg Heil salute when you raise your arm, if there's a cop next to you, they will arrest you. Straight up. Straight up. It sounds simple and it sounds, but that comes from a whole country and generations being informed, working through something, and not wanting it to happen again. Of course, there's enough malcontents and idiots and that want their own agenda and still believe in all of this other idiotic crap. There are those, but what I'm saying is there has been a great effort made on all levels, and it's supported by the government, it's funded by the government.
But that's the key.
It's funded by the government.
That's the key.
That there is a conversation, and this conversation with every generation is ongoing. They do not let you forget. And I think that's a big problem, that we do not have that here.
No. Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, we don't. We don't. And there was reparations, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we don't. We don't.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But and again, that's one of those things that this country was founded in blood, grew up in blood, but these are the things that are not talked about. These are the things that are not taught. That's the big problem, that people don't know their own history.
I agree. I agree. And I mean, I think that's kind of where we are. We do want to ignore, we want to forget, we want to move past, you can't move past something that you haven't dealt with. And we haven't dealt with it. This has been.
Yeah, and you cannot have an open, honest dialogue and a conversation and come to any kind of conclusion if you don't have that. If you don't come from the same point when you have the same history.
I agree. I agree. Well, they all love you, baby. They're saying they love you and they love the transparency.
Yeah, they just love the fact that you look really pretty and I look like you just pulled me off the warehouse floor.
Be quiet.
Which you did.
I did. Bernadette said dual citizenship. Yeah, Germany doesn't allow.
It does, but it's a little more complicated than that. They do, but you have to have, for Germany, you have to have property in Germany, or you have to have significant ties, such as larger bank accounts, and that kind. You have to have financial interest vesting as property for them to give dual citizenship. So it's not as easy as other countries make it, and that's a German thing. Americans don't care with dual citizenship. Germany is very, very strict on that. So for me, and I tell you very honestly, for me to become an American, which I've been eligible for a while now, and we very much looked into that, but I can honestly tell you, I have absolutely no interest in getting my American citizenship that is signed by President Trump.
Well, there you have it. Well, this has been enlightening. So that's the first time you've told me. You've never said that to me. So if I'm surprised on here, yeah, I'm surprised. So we're coming up to 40 minutes. I try to keep my lives up to 40 minutes. So thank you guys so much for our lives, 40 minutes. But thank you for, coming on and feeling like you have a safe space to have a conversation with us. And we feel like we're able to have conversations. We've always been really not super transparent, but we have been transparent in regards to things that have happened, things that we're open enough to have the conversation with you all. Because I think it's important. I think that we need to at some point be able to have conversations that are uncomfortable and have discussions that are uncomfortable, even if you don't agree with what we're saying, even if you agree with some of what we're saying, or if you don't agree at all. I think that's kind of where the maturity comes in, and being able to say that I can have a conversation with someone that I don't agree with. And we need to get there. I think this is where we need to be. We need to strive to get there as hard as we can. And as you see, even with us, it's hard for me sometimes to keep my emotions at bay, because I'm always like, yeah, no, 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 no. And Rudi comes from a very different point of view. And I've never had someone with the views that Rudi has, especially not being from the US. And the fact that he loves the US so much, and when he said, that he's disappointed in the dream yesterday, I was just like, what dream? I mean, I kept repeating that over and over, and he just said, you don't understand. I'm like, I don't understand, so help me understand. So it's really it's okay. It's okay to be emotional and be where you are. It's okay, for people to do what they're going to do. We have no right to judge anyone. Um, you know, it's hard to watch. It's hard to stomach. It's hard to realize that this is what's happening. Every day something new is happening, and sometimes it's like, I just need to tap out. And I do. I tap out quite a bit. So, those of you who meditate, those of you who pray, those of you who do things in order for you to become centered, we have to do more. Because I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. I think we're gonna be in this for a little bit. And hell, we were just talking about Corona last week, and everybody acts like Corona's gone, but Corona's still here too. So we have pandemic, we have the Corona, we have now this. It's just, oh man. So we're right at 40 minutes, but we appreciate all of you. Thank you guys so much for joining. We can continue the conversation in our comments like we always do. And make sure everyone stays safe, drink plenty of water. And until